Hello, I'm Christine Middleton from Zoho for Enterprise, and thank you for joining us for yet another installment of Leadership Live, where I'll host candid discussions with industry leaders on the intersection of business and technology. Joining me today is Wendy Turner-Williams. Wendy is the CEO of the Association.ai and is also the Chief Data and Analytics Officer at Culstrata-ai. Let's welcome her in now.
Good morning, Christine. How are you?
Hey, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Of course.
All right. So before we begin, to get started, I wanted to know, what you could tell us, if you could tell us a little bit about your experience with our topic today.
Sure. I think that, when it comes to the intersection of business and technology, we're really talking about all the technologies that, we interact with during our lives, whether it's business or not, really. I think that when you think about that and you think about my background, which is mostly around data, automation and business applications and business systems and the cloud are all basically about the capture of business decisions and data points. And so whether you're interacting with a search button or on Google or your phone or you're doing work, all of that is capturing an action to help you do the best that you can from an operations or a scale or an interaction perspective across the board, which is all about data.
Right. Absolutely. All right. So without further ado, let's get into the questions. So I wanted to ask you, what challenges and opportunities does data present in the context of privacy and security?
Well, I think that's been a hot topic for several years now, but now with AI, at the forefront of everyone's mind, it's really becoming even more of an interesting topic. I think that data, people talk about data as the new oil, the new currency, that we're in this data kind of transformation and era that we've been in for many, many years now. And if you think about that, you think about cyber and how cyber is also, increasing in volume. In fact, I read a stat the other day that said that cyber was costing the world economy about $8 trillion a year, which means that, as our data value increases and as we are moving to more and more and more digital, the value of that data to target you as an individual, whether it's malicious or not malicious, is increasing. Right. So I think that, data is wonderful because data has so many positive capabilities, but there's always those who want to use data for harm, or there's always those who potential can target you or know things about you that you don't necessarily want them to know, which gives you a choice when it comes to privacy.
For sure. There was something that I read up on the news where an attorney actually used AI to like formulate his whole case, and then he was found out later. So there are definitely instances of people using data the wrong way, that's for sure.
Well, I think that when you think about, again, when you think about AI, especially, right, AI opens a whole nother can of worms. I mean, back to like your first question was around security and privacy. The use case you just talked about was more about, what was the case, created by a human or by, an AI generated component. But I think that AI is going to open a lot of focus around things like copyright or bias in new ways, right? Of course, there's always been the privacy concern, but I think copyright and bias are going to be two areas you're going to hear a lot more about.
All right. Okay, so with the next question, what are the ethical considerations when dealing with a vast amount of data in digital specifically?
Yeah, I think there's lots of ethical ramifications. So back to what I just mentioned around bias, I think that's one of the biggest components. If you're thinking about, in your data sets or within, AI and it's crawling, whatever it would be crawling, I think that if you do not have a large enough kind of data set that really is, holistic from a human perspective, then you're creating bias. So an
Mm,
example would be, if you are, if you are doing a study on social media and you're using only certain social media sites and you're trying to define maybe say the upcoming election and what voting geared towards, then depending on the site you're on, if you're not getting a cohesive view, then you're getting swayed numbers, right? Like that's a really easy example. Another example would be, if you're looking at the internet and you're just crawling the internet, well, a lot of third world countries don't necessarily have the internet, right? So are you really getting a sampling of all the different types of ethnicities, or all the different types of social economic kind of components in order to make decisions? No, you're not. And I think that as AI starts to crawl more and more, and the human aspect of creating the models that basically define the data sets within it in order for the machine learning to work, and as AI does that more and more, it's all about getting equal kind of equality within your data sets.
Absolutely. I mean, that is definitely a valid concern, like knowing what the real numbers are and for it not to be biased, that's definitely a concern. Um, so what strategies do chief data officers implement to attract and retain top data talent in their teams? What with, the growing of data and how it's become a very hot topic?
Yeah, I think when it comes to talent, some of these challenges we just talked about around the ethics and bias and privacy and security, data isn't just pure pumping a number, right? It's not just I acquire data from this particular application and then I do some processing and I push it out. Data requires you to understand the business. It requires you to understand the business strategy. It requires you to understand technology and infrastructure in order to create the data itself. And then it requires you to be able to communicate, about that data in order for people to actually make high quality decisions. And so I think that, that in itself is like a really good attractant, because you're getting business knowledge, you're getting, knowledge about sales, you're getting knowledge about infrastructure. The technology is constantly shifting and changing. So having technology skills are increasing. But I think that the other thing about data that makes it easy to attract talent potentially is around, what are you building? Like, what's the accountability and what's the potential impact to the business, right? There's a trade-off when it comes to business value, and good data leaders know how to explain the business value that the business is generating from the data itself. And then, of course, then having teams then come in to produce that value, where you're actually then, quantifying the value of the team itself, means you're a part of something. And when you can do that and you can actually align it to the number one business strategies and say, hey, look, we wanted to grow our markets within, say, APAC by 20% this year, et cetera, we can actually quantify the value of the data sets underneath that to show the impact of that information and the decisions that were made as a result of it. So, that's an easy way to make people feel like they're a part of something and a part of a team and had a major impact, which is attractive in itself.
For sure. I mean, like the title of our topic, data is in fact the universal foundation because it helps quantify anything that you're looking at can be quantified by data, that's for sure.
That's right. I think too often the data teams don't always quantify themselves. They're
Mm.
so busy focusing on everyone else that a lot of times some of the teams or the leaders miss actually quantifying their own value in that component, and that sometimes causes a little bit of issues for the chief CDOs or CDAOs out there in regards to what value did you bring me.
Yeah, I bet, absolutely. Yeah. All right. So that wraps up all of our questions. I'll keep the chat open to see if we have any other questions coming in. Is there anything else that you would like to share, Wendy?
Yeah, Christine, I'd love to let me go back a little bit to that question about privacy and security, et
Yeah.
cetera, and just talk about something new that I'm doing.
Okay.
About a month ago, not quite a month ago, it'll be a month this Thursday, actually, I launched something called the Association.ai, which you mentioned at the beginning of the talk. This is something very, very unique. And what I'm trying to do here is basically create a by practitioner, for practitioner business association that is global in nature, that really, really focuses on the practitioners in the AI, the data, the ethics, the privacy, the robotics, and the security space. And it's those specific folks because our work touches one another. There is no security without data, right? The whole point of security is about the protection of data. There is no privacy without the data teams because you can't actually create a privacy policy without implementing it within the data operations and understanding the lineage, etc. Same thing with ethics, right? It's really it's a philosophy to a degree which requires implementation within the data operations. And too often these teams tend to get siloed when we do work and we don't talk to one another. But
Right.
also with AI on the forefront, we need to do more. Like, we're the folks from a practitioner perspective who are on the ground, who hold the keys to ethical, quality, trusted AI implementations. We also have the ability to do a policy that is, almost like self-regulation policy in nature. Where can we align as practitioners to drive kind of, future generations in regards to trust? And so if anybody would like to know more about the association.ai, you can reach out to me directly or go to the site. It's directly the association.ai. If you want to join, we're doing a free actual code for the next year, which is launch 23, launch, LAUNCH 23. Join us. We're going to be creating a governance policy for a governance council across the globe by industries and by disciplines to basically let the practitioner voice be heard when it comes to ethical AI.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing. Sounds like very interesting work for sure.
Needed.
Yeah, very necessary as well, of course. So we have one question from
Sure.
Leon. I'm just going to put it up here on the screen. So he says, "Good morning from San Diego. Great comment on ensuring the employees feel like they're a part of the team. How do you increase their digital competency? What are the unique ways you recommend implementing other than sitting the team in training courses?"
Yeah, I actually, Leon, that's a great question. So I'm a big fan of data literacy and data fluency. In fact, I actually believe personally that data fluency is more important than the literacy aspect. Because fluency is the ability to understand the business, which goes back to really your questions. When it comes to training courses, etc., I don't think anybody really loves to go to a training class, for a week or for a couple of days. What's more important is to understand kind of the internal systems, processes, and business strategies that exist within your company, and then to fine tune kind of the training that needs to happen based on infrastructure changes or knowledge gaps, etc. So I always recommend putting in something like a data management maturity framework, so you can measure, where people are in regards to literacy or fluency, and you can create an end-to-end program around that. It is something that requires partnership with your HR partners, right? And it should be like a co-owned strategy between your data leadership and your HR partners. And it shouldn't just be for the data teams, it should be for the business teams as well. They need to be able to speak a little, data, but the data teams need to understand the business as well.
Thank you. And thank you, Leon, for your question. That winds up our Leadership Live for this month. I want to thank all of you once again for joining us. Thank you so much for your time, Wendy. It's been amazing working with you. And thank you for sharing your insight on this topic. Very timely.
Thank you, guys. Have a good day.